So now, ladies and gentlemen, live and in colour, it's Mr. Wayne Lovejuice.
The other day I produced a Louis, had a chat with an interesting chappie who said that the YouTube algorithms really aren't that happy. If a channel only broadcasts once a week, so we decided we could text ya whenever we've got a piece of news in our new book on the track Xtra. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name's John Downs, and welcome to another episode of On the Track Extra. For those of you who don't know and who have arrived at this video by accident and therefore, according to the vagaries of the YouTube publicity algorithms, I'm the director of an organisation called the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and every Saturday we do a half-hour show about hard science, weird shit, surreality. I'm talking nonsense again. And you want to know what surreality is? Well, yes. Oop. But as well as Saturday afternoons, we also broadcast, as you can see now, every Wednesday evening at 5 o'clock. And as I've pointed out before, 5 o'clock's a weird time. It's one of those sort of liminal times between afternoon and evening. So I'm not sure whether 5 o'clock is Wednesday evening or Wednesday afternoon. But every Wednesday afternoon at 5 o'clock, we broadcast this On the Track Extra, a shorter show, but which also covers the vague remit of cryptozoology, green issues, natural history, and all sorts of other crap we make up as we go along. And this time, because it was so popular last time, we've got a great unboxing, except it's not in the box, and it's not even an enveloping. It's because Graham already took it out of its envelope. But we are going to be looking at something very, very interesting. So, what is this amazingly interesting thing? Well, cobble over this. On the arm of my armchair, on top of one of my elderly iPads, here is the latest copy of Flying Snake. Now, regular viewers of both this and the main show on Saturday will know my old friend Richard Muirhead. He's been on the show several times and will, no doubt, be on the show several times more in the future. I've known Richard longer than I've known anybody in the world that I'm not actually related to. In fact, the only two people I know that I have known for longer than Richard are my cousin Penny and my brother Richard. Apart from them, Richard Muirhead is my longest standing friend and member of my extended family, really, because I love Richard dearly. He's a very sweet boy. I've known him since he was 6 and I was 11, and we were both living in Hong Kong together back in the summer of 1970. And he publishes this irregular and incredibly esoteric and arcane little magazine called Flying Snake, which is something I'm very, very fond of. Now, this is the new issue. Let's have a look and see what is in this issue this time for you guys all to be excited by. Well, on the front cover, it's about an alpine newt found in Macclesfield. Well, alpine newts are gorgeous little creatures, and they're not meant to be found anywhere in the UK. The only colony I know of was described by Sir Christopher Lever in the first edition of his Naturalised Animals, the British Isles, and that was somewhere in Kent, I believe. I know it was in the home counties somewhere. So the fact that he's found a colony of newts, these wonderfully, beautifully coloured and particularly rare newts in Macclesfield, is pretty far out by anybody's standards. So what have we got here? Starting off with, we have Dr. Devo's diary. Dear Richard, he is obsessed with a peculiar little band called Devo, who for some reason wore these weird plastic hats. So many years ago, as a present, I presented him with one of these hats for himself that he could wear at one of the weird weekends, and he's been treasuring it ever since. So, it starts off, what have we got here? Ulrich Megan, another old friend of ours, who I have known for 30 years, something like that. We've never actually met, but we have had a lively correspondence by letter and email for the last 3 decades, and he is writing a fascinating article on flying snakes. Some Flying Snakes by Ulrich Megan. Let's see, what else? The Flying Snakes of Europe. A Hunt for the Tatsu worm, which is a very interesting creature that is supposed to exist in various parts of Central Europe, but I've never heard of one flying before. However, I've heard of them jumping, but I've never heard of them flying. But he writes, the residents of this mountain testify that one often saw such dragons flying like arrows from the mountain footpatch to the rock called the Urgeis. And I'm sure I've pronounced all of those wrong. He also goes on to write that in 1790 a man observed such flying snakes in a mountain lake near Planeve in Switzerland. And again, I'm sure I pronounced it wrong. Then it goes on to Flying Snakes of Europe. And then it goes to an American flying snake that I'd never heard of. And then, supposedly, a flying snake from the Levant in the Eastern Mediterranean. But again, I've never heard of that either. I don't know where these guys get all this stuff from, but this is, I think, my favourite thing about Flying Snake, the magazine, is that it's full of such glorious obscurities that are plucked from the archives, which otherwise people like me and you and everybody else who I hope is going to go out and subscribe to this magazine would never hear of. Now we have an article by Richard Muirhead and Shane Lee. Shane Lee's somebody I've known for a long time as well. Really nice guy. Again, I've never met him in person, but we've been swapping emails on and off for decades. And this is about a creature called the Ozark Howler. Now, the Ozark Howler, quote, is a very controversial cryptid because some serious cryptozoologists, e.g. Dr. Carl Schuger, think it's a hoax, which of course doesn't necessarily mean it is a hoax. American cryptozoologist David Weatherly, who's written several books on American cryptozoology, told me, Richard, that he believed the Ozark Howler might be a wolf. And it goes on to describe the Ozark Howler, and we have something really far out here, which again I've never seen, allegedly the taxidermied head of an Ozark Howler. Fascinating stuff, Richard. I'm very impressed with you. This is a particularly good issue, whatever you call it, issue. It's a particularly good issue, even by your standards. And now this is something, again on the Ozark Howler, I'd never heard of. An alleged photograph of the Ozark Howler from, where's it from? The Springfield News Leader, December the 17th, 2015. Now, what else we got? Then we've got the story about the alpine newts in Macclesfield by Richard. Fascinating article, and if you look here you can see that is where the alpine newt is supposed to live, and not in Cheshire. By the way, my family come from Macclesfield, which, considering that there are people like Richard Freeman who call me a soft southern shandy drinker, I think as half my family come from Macclesfield and the rest of them come from the borders between Scotland and England. I think a place called Tweedsdale. I think we can probably ignore any claims that I'm a soft southern shandy drinker. So what have we got now? We've got, and I knew about this, it's been an account of the sighting of a weird flying creature, a huge bird at Loch Ness. I knew about this one, but I've never seen the original story. In fact, I didn't know there were so many. Look how many different reports there are. I had no idea there were so many. This is really, you are surpassing yourself, Richard. More and more and more. And then we have Dr. Carl Schuker writing about the pegasi, Pliny's horse-headed mystery birds, which I think, golly, this is fascinating. It's not just about flying horses. The Pegasus, it's, oh golly, all sorts of fantastic things here. They are supposedly horse-headed birds found in Scythia. Pliny, who reports their appearance, regards them as fabulous. Well, Pliny the Elder didn't believe in them as having an objective flesh and blood reality. Then there's going to be an awful lot of work having to be done to prove that they do in fact exist. However, Carl is making some very good suggestions of peculiar looking birds who could possibly have provided travellers' tales to originally account for the pegasi. Then what do you have? You have another one of my favourite writers, Lois Moderman, who also writes for Animals and Men, and we really need to get another issue of Animals and Men out soon. It's been 2 years since the last one. Although my life's been fairly complicated over the last 2 years, I don't think that we can get away without it for much longer. Now this is weird talking about Nanda Fodor, who is actually the person who is being portrayed in the new Jeff the Talking Mongoose movie. He was a Hungarian-American psychoanalyst and parapsychologist who wrote several books, amongst which are the extensive Encyclopedia of Psychic Science, 1966, and Between Two Worlds, 1964. And both of these books are the ones from which Lois is getting stories about bread goblins. And this is something that I cannot possibly hope to cover just in a quick 5-minute scoot around. You're going to have to read this for yourself. Then we have a story by Kate Shaw, who's somebody I don't know, about a 1908 giant snake in Tennessee. Now I've got a copy of Chad Armand's Boss Snakes, again, which Richard gave me for a birthday present, and I don't know if it's in there, but it's worth having a look. Here, for example, you have a lovely engraving saying that the creature was 25 feet in length. Now, there's a sugar glider that's escaped in London. There's the story of the crocodile under the Welsh School that we did. A message in a bottle from Scotland to Norway. The goats in Landudno, which again we'd covered in a few years ago and on the track. We have the message in a bottle on the golf course. I like these message in a bottle stories. And a roundup of stories about strange occurrences surrounding ostrich eggs. Including here a lovely picture of a 17th century carved ostrich egg. Lovely. A shark with a giant bite on its body. I think we did that one as well. And sightings of sightings of a yowie, a very rare insect rediscovered in East Anglia of all places, and a question whether the you try and say this when you had a few drinks, the buff-breasted button quail, is it still alive? Well, we're going to have to find that out, I think. There are stories about monster eggs in museums, flying lizards in Papua New Guinea, a possible lynx report in southern Wiltshire back in 1995, and a strange fish in Australia. And that's only the beginning, because there's all sorts of stuff in here that really should be an On Track, and certainly will be an On the Track or Animals and Men at some point, and it involves quite a lot of my favourite writers, as well as the people I've told you. There's Bob Skinner and Gary Mangia-Copra, who are all people for whom I have a great amount of respect. And I seriously suggest that the only thing you can do really is to contact Richard Muirhead, and you can contact him on Facebook, and he'll give you the up-to-date details of how to subscribe, because this is a wonderful little magazine and I cannot recommend it highly enough.